All right, welcome to Fantasy Football Today Express. We're talking about the AFC East sleepers, breakouts, and busts. Jamie, how many playoff teams are we getting out of the AFC East?
Oh, I think just one, but you could see a healthy Dolphins offense. They were on the cusp of being a playoff team last year with Tua missing 6 games. You could see a one of these, new head coach influx of change of culture, better talent, better X's and O's, for either the Patriots or the Jets. So it wouldn't surprise me if there's 2, but I think it's just the Bills.
Yeah, the Patriots, don't sleep on them. They had obviously a terrible year, but upgraded coaching staff and the easiest schedule on paper in the AFC. Okay, let's get a sleeper in the AFC East.
I'm going to start right there. Drake May, one of my favorite sleepers. I think I even listed him as a breakout. So if you want to put him in that category too, but based on his draft capital, he was on pace in his 10 healthy games, to be the 3rd best rushing quarterback, 650 yards, which is clearly something that's important for us when we talk about fantasy. And I think it was 4 of those games he was over 21 fantasy points. So opportunity here with what should be a better receiving core. Stephon Diggs is whatever you think of him as a fantasy asset, is going to help Drake May, and Kyle Williams is going to help Drake May. So there's a lot to like about the changes here. Trevion Henderson as well, who's a breakout candidate. But I think the opportunity for Drake May at his cost to be a potential starting fantasy quarterback is certainly on the table.
Any other sleepers or just one? Or?
I like Jaylen Wright. Devon Achane as a rookie battled some injuries, and now there's no Raheem Mostert. So Wright could be the second running back there for Miami. Got to keep an eye on Alexander Madison because we know sometimes these veteran guys creep up and, coaches like what they do. But Wright's an explosive player, could fill that role if Achane misses any time. So good handcuff there. So I like the situation for him. Same thing with Ray Davis. He started 1 game for the Bills. It was week 6 last year against the Jets, and he had 18 PPR points, had over 90 yards rushing, over 30 yards receiving, had 3 catches in that game. I'm sorry, 50 yards, excuse me. 3 catches for 55 yards. So Ray Davis is a guy that is definitely someone I take with a lot of late-round picks. I take with a late-round pick in a lot of leagues. Like the opportunity there for him. And then I guess in this category is Keon Coleman. We just spent some time talking about his upside, and if things work out well for him, second-year receiver who started to show some flashes before a wrist injury last year, could easily be the number 1 receiver for Buffalo because I think he has more upside than Khalil Shakir.
I'm going to give you one more sleeper just so you can laugh at it. His name is Darren Waller. He's 33. You want to know what his 17-game pace was in his last season, 2023? 79 catches, 847 yards, 2 touchdowns on 111 targets. You want to know what Jonnu Smith did last year? 111 targets, 884 yards instead of 847, 88 catches instead of 79. But they look pretty similar. Obviously, Jonnu Smith had a huge second half, but just the total production, Jonnu Smith 2024 with Miami and the 17-game pace of Darren Waller's 2023 with the Giants, removing partial and injured games, almost identical other than the touchdowns. And if you're just looking for someone to run 4-yard routes like Jonnu Smith did last year, have one of the lowest ADOTs at the position, catch balls at the line of scrimmage, I feel like most tight ends can do that. Darren Waller might be 33, but he has not run a lot of routes, played a lot of plays. So if he stays healthy, I think he could be in the 9 PPR fantasy point per game range, which is not great, but streamable.
I think, when you start to look for why moves happen, I don't know. I wasn't on the shows when when the move happened. Frank Smith is the offense coordinator for the Dolphins. He was the tight ends coach for the Raiders when Waller had his breakout seasons. So I'm sure that had a lot to do with why the Dolphins made this move and were able to move on from Jonnu Smith and bring in somebody for next to nothing and see what he has to offer. So it's hard to come back after sitting out a year of football for a guy that was banged up and, talked about a degenerative hamstring injury. That could easily be a problem once again. But like you said, he's free on draft day, and so, 5 bench spots, you're probably not drafting Darren Waller. 6 or more, especially if you don't love your tight end situation, it's not a bad dart throw by any stretch.
Yeah, I'm not really drafting him in 12-team leagues, but I just want to throw it out there. Scott Fishbowl, if you're drafting, I think there could be value there. Okay, how about a break? We'll take a break and then we'll do breakouts after this.
Critics are buzzing about the new season of Yellow Jackets.
This is not healthy.
Yellow Jackets' new season now streaming on the Paramount Plus with Showtime plan.
Let's talk about some breakouts in the AFC East. Who do you like?
Justin Fields is my favorite, maybe my favorite breakout of any player. You look at what he has done as a starter, over 20 fantasy points per game in each of his last 2 years starting for the Bears. We know he ran for 1,000 yards, one of 3 quarterbacks to ever do that, joining Lamar Jackson and Michael Vick. And so there's that potential to be maybe the best rushing quarterback in the NFL this year. Then you look at the 6 games that he started last year in Pittsburgh, the final 4, he was averaging over 24 points per game. So there's not a lot of great weapons here. I do think Garrett Wilson qualifies as a breakout candidate, but it feels like we always call him a breakout candidate every year. But there's a huge opportunity for him as well. But I think, both those guys are sort of tied together. They were together at Ohio State. So if Wilson can get the DJ Moore treatment that we saw from Fields in Chicago, then there's a lot to like about. I just don't like he's being drafted. I think he's being drafted a little too soon, to go back to our first show of the week. But in any event, there's a huge opportunity for Wilson to finally deliver on his draft capital in the NFL draft and be the guy I think a lot of fantasy managers have seen and even saw last year, before the Devontae Adams trade. But in terms of Fields, he's a top 10 quarterback in my rankings, and just an easy target that you can get after, basically, the first 5 or 6 rounds in one quarterback league.
All right. And finally, a bust or two in the AFC East.
Yeah, it's again, stick with the same team. Bree Hall makes me really nervous. The upside is huge. He should benefit. Dave talked about this. He should benefit with the creativity of a running quarterback and some of the lanes that'll be open for him. So hopefully as a rusher he'll be successful. But Justin Fields steals rushing touchdowns. Justin Fields doesn't throw to his running backs, at least traditionally. And so with the at least for me, the nervousness of what Fields will take away from him, and then you have just the small factor, which I think should be a factor, but to me it's small, of what Aaron Glenn said. If he's the head coach of the Jets, Aaron Glenn said that wants to use both Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis. I don't think that's a huge factor. I don't think that they're taking Brees Hall off the field for significant stretches. But if they do use more guys than maybe we've seen during Hall's tenure with the Jets, it could be a little bit of a problem. So he's still a number 2 running back. I just would not draft him in round 3. I think round 4 or later is a good spot for him, but he's someone that makes me a little bit nervous on drafting.
Okay. I'm getting close to calling Brees Hall a sleeper because I think people are getting a little too negative on him. And I think the difference between the way you see him and the way I see him is I actually think he's going to catch some passes. I feel like he might be second on the team in targets. They've got a pretty garbage receiving core outside of Garrett Wilson. So I don't think he's going to catch what he caught, before the Devontae Adams trade last year with Aaron Rodgers. Won't be anything like that. But we've seen parts of Justin Fields' career where he has thrown to running backs. I think he will out of necessity. So I'm going to say at least 40 catches, nothing like 70 or anything crazy like that. And then I'm just hoping that he can regain that form. If he just can get back to being the explosive player, I think that's been the biggest issue for him. He just hasn't been that good of a running back. The regular metrics tell it. The advanced metrics tell it. He doesn't avoid tackles. He doesn't break away like he used to. But maybe he's one of those guys where it just takes that extra year to recover from the ACL. He
was good year 1.
It's amazing. Oh, year 1 off the ACL?
Yeah, that was his best season.
Well, it wasn't better. It wasn't better than his rookie season.
Well, he played 4 games his rookie season, but his second year was the high reception year.
Yeah, and last year started that way too. Then they brought in Devontae Adams. So anyway, I don't know. I feel like Brees Hall might be undervalued, but right now I can't say he is at 37th overall, still ahead of James Cook and Ken Walker in our ADP. If he starts getting to like 47, then I'll
buy in all day.
Pretty pumped.
Yeah.
I don't know if you will. Okay. That's it for Sleepers, Breakouts, and Busts for the AFC East. Thanks so much for watching and listening. We will talk to you tomorrow on FFT Express.